Hello Earthlings, I'm Chelsea J. Bear, welcome back, and if you're new here, welcome. So today I'm going to share a sort of things I'm ready to tell you style video, really looking at my own personal journey of darkness. And so I'll just start at the beginning. I started working with my intuitive gifts, consciously at least, about 3 years ago. I think I've always been psychic, I just never really acknowledged it. I just wasn't aware that it's just ignorance and me being naive, but I thought, everything in 3D is like dark and separation and all that stuff. And once you get out of 3D, everything is just love and light. I didn't really recognize or realize that there was darkness in this universe, that we do live in a universe of polarity and duality. And so by my own sort of naiveness, I never experienced any darkness. And the reason why is if I don't have that fear, if I don't know that I'm supposed to be scared, then I'm not going to be scared. It's kind of like how a baby isn't scared of going on planes because they don't have the perceptions that planes can be dangerous. And so it's the same with me. I just didn't really recognize or acknowledge that there was sort of shadow and darkness throughout the universe. So I never had any issues. I was just like, this is so fun. This is so easy. I'm just talking to my angels and spirit guides and light beings. And I just wasn't even worried about negative entities latching on to me. And that was something when I started channeling, people would be like, well, how do you protect yourself? And what about like negative energies? And I was just like, what are you talking about? And it wasn't that I didn't believe them. I just was like, I'm not worried about that. I have really strong boundaries. And truthfully, my really strong boundaries really were just the fact that it's not that I didn't believe in it or not. I just didn't give enough energy to even acknowledge it. And so that kind of did create this protective sphere, this boundary around me, which was great. I'm like, it's not a bad thing, but it's kind of like ignorance is bliss. And so, coming into this sort of spiritual community, this sort of realm, I would start hearing about the reptilians or the grays. And it wasn't that I didn't believe in it or not. I just didn't give enough energy to acknowledge it. So people would be like, oh, Hollywood and the top 1%, the reptilians are eating us or whatever they're doing. And I was like, that's cool. You do you believe or think whatever you want. I'm just not going to give my energy to that. Very spiritual bypassing. And it just wasn't really in my frame of reference. I didn't really come in contact with a lot of people talking about that. it just wasn't within my field of perception whatsoever. And again, I just kept connecting with light beings, and I would feel them in I would feel them in my body, and everything felt like this pure loving essence. And so then I had a client come to me, and they were experiencing psychic attacks, and I teach from my own lessons and learning, and any videos that I share with you guys, it's all from my personal experience of what I've learned along the way. And so it was like the first time where I'd come in contact with someone where I'm like, I can't help you, I don't know what to do. Like, I truly don't, And so I did my best and channeled for them, and life went on. Then I had another client, and then I had another client that was dealing with some really dark stuff where I was like, I can't help you at all. Like, this is not my field of profession whatsoever. I don't even know where to direct you to. I'm so sorry, but I just was like, I can't help you. And it was very confronting, 100%. And I'm really big on everyone is like a mirror or a lesson. So having 3 people within a month, after never even diving into this sort of shadowy side of spirituality, I was like, why is this occurring for me? Not like I'm a victim, but more, this is really interesting. Why do these patterns keep happening? There's something here, and I don't know what it is. And so fast forward a little bit, and I start to feel a block in my channeling. Maybe it was just the holidays. Like, that's kind of what I told myself. I'm like, oh, it's like everyone's busy. I'm not going to sit down and channel. I don't necessarily sit down and like meditate and channel every day, but I'm like in communication throughout the day. But I could just feel this block where I was like, I feel like I have no more questions for you guys. I feel like, not that I know everything there is to know, but I'm like, it doesn't excite me. I don't know what's going on. Am I not meant to do this anymore? And they're kind of like, you'll figure it out, you'll see, but there is something occurring. Like, okay, like what could this wall be, you know? I met up with a friend and we were just talking about Hollywood and the reptilians and all of that, and usually I would just kind of put on filters and just kind of like be polite, but this time I was like, no, I'm gonna listen and see what they have to say. And I just listened and absorbed and kind of took in how it felt in my body, of like what felt like truth, what felt like not truth, what felt like conspiracy, what felt like, you know, it was a bit of a reach. And it was just really interesting. I could start to feel these things unpacking within me. And I just remember I was laying in bed one night and I started channeling Earthalia, who's sort of like my main star guide. She's a tall, benevolent gray. And I just had this whole download where the block was, I'm not facing the darkness in the world. And it's like I recognize the dumpster fire that is the world right now. It wasn't that, but I just wasn't recognizing that or acknowledging that there is darkness in the universe, and then there's also darkness in myself. And when I kind of said that, there's like this ding ding ding. It kind of felt like I went up a level in a karate belt, like, if that makes sense. I just was like, oh, the aha moment. And the whole download was, I have to face the darkness, the shadow in myself, in order to fully experience my light. And by me sort of not acknowledging the darkness in the world or in the universe, I was blocking myself from fully experiencing the light that is within the universe and within our planet, within our world. And it just hit me where I'm like, oh, this is sort of like the next stage of my own ascension and evolution. And it was funny because Earthalia came through and she was super serious. She was like, you are now ready for the next level. I was like, what level? Okay. And so I just felt this weight lifted on me and from that space I started doing shadow work. I do To Be Magnetic with Lacey Phillips, and I've been really diving into it. I mean, stuff came up where I was mean to this girl in high school. I wasn't a mean girl, but there was just one girl where she basically made junior varsity volleyball and I didn't. I was like 14 or 15. I was really upset. So I kind of just like made fun of her running one time. Like, I'm being real with you guys. Like, I just was like, I don't know. I made a joke about how she ran. And even when that memory came up when I was doing the shadow work, I was like, well, she blah, 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 blah. And my guides were like, no, that's the whole point of this, is to face your shadow without making up any more excuses. And I was like, okay, so I sat with it, even though it was uncomfortable. I was like, yeah, I was a mean girl to her. It didn't feel good. It made me feel really uncomfortable because I always thought of myself in high school as like, I was really nice to everyone. Not like everyone liked me. I don't know if they did, but I just felt like I was friends with everyone. And so for them to show me this memory of where I was rude to this person because of my own insecurities, it was super uncomfortable. And I was like, had to sit with it and just kind of feel the uncomfortableness of it and look at my own shadow of, why did I act that way? Why did I think it was okay? And then why am I so ashamed of it? And then again, it's like looking throughout the darkness in the world. It's like I can see it on the media, but recognizing that there are dark forces behind a lot of it. And also just recognizing there's darkness throughout our universe. I know for me, I'm like, oh, when I look at past incarnations, they're always kind of like nice. You know, I'm like, you know, a farmer or whatever, doing just either living a simple life. And they're like, you will start to see incarnations where you were a quote unquote baddie. And I was like, oh, that sucks. But like, no, it's recognizing that, you know, you, the reader, I was just going to say you, the listener, but you're not listening. Maybe you are. You, the viewer, me as well. It's like we've done incarnations where we've been murderers and rapists, and even throughout the galaxy where we've been reptilians and dark grays or, you know, evil. And it's recognizing that we've played all of these parts for the purpose of our own ascension. And if we keep coming into reality with this false light of like, oh, I'm just love and light, and that's all I want to show the world, but ignoring the darkness, that creates more false light. We as humanity will not be able to properly shine divine light until we recognize and acknowledge the darkness within ourselves. And that's what they're kind of showing me about all 2020. It's like we've been ignoring, not everyone, but as a collective, been ignoring the darkness, and now it kind of exploded in our face and it's all coming up to the surface. And I think a lot of us on a personal level too. I know for me, where it's like I just kept ignoring the shadow, the dark, and then it all kind of came out, and it's been really uncomfortable, but also really rewarding. And so if we keep trying to be these love and light humans without acknowledging the shadow that pervades this entire universe, we actually aren't properly walking towards the process of enlightenment. We're doing it from a sort of false sense. We're doing it from like these sort of false stepping stones of, if I just preach the love throughout the world, if I just preach only the light, but ignore the density, ignore the heaviness, ignore the shadow and the darkness, it's doing a disservice to everyone. It's truly doing a disservice. And I'm sure a lot of us have been hearing too, it's like, use discernment when you're connecting or communicating with your spirit guides or light beings or whoever. And I'll share a story about that too. I had a being come through. They're kind of passing off as an Arcturian, but something with them, like I would channel the Pleiadians, say, and I see very clearly, and so I'd have the Pleiadians come through, but then this Arcturian would come through, and I'd be like, you weren't invited, this is so weird. And it was like this first test of me really recognizing that maybe he like is not of the light. Maybe my boundaries, there's a hole in them or whatever. And just, I felt weird. And I was like talking to my guides, I'm like, I just feel weird about this being, I'm not sure what to do. And so I'm just gonna command him to leave. And he did, and I haven't dealt with him since. And so I was like, okay guys, tell me, like, was he of the light or was he dark? And they're like, it doesn't matter. That was the test there for you, was to use your will, to use your discernment and your intuition. You felt off about him. It doesn't matter if he's of the light or not. It's up to us to just follow our intuition. And that is something we will all have to do. We do that even in our lives, where you start dating someone, you're like, something feels off and you don't know why, and then down the line they become like complete narcissists or whatever. So it's like those red flags. And so that's what we all have to do with our own work, with other individuals, with other light beings, and with ourselves, of when we're being dishonest with ourselves, when we're not looking at the full wholeness of ourselves, which includes the shadow. And so through this whole process, I ended up communicating with a benevolent reptilian, and I was like super scared and like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing here? And my guides were there, and I could feel the energy of this being, where I'm like, okay, they are of the light. Like, it felt so different than this like sort of false Arcturian experience. And they were just letting me know, like, of course there are light and dark in all races, in all beings. And so it's recognizing there are benevolent reptilians and greys and Anunnaki out there, and actually more and more of them are coming to the light as well. And it's the same with humanity, and you can see it the same with Earth. We have humans that are of the highest and greatest good, serving humanity, and we have humans that are totally just serving themselves. And so this whole process for me, this whole journey really showed me that they're like truly acknowledging and understanding there is light and dark throughout this universe. It was made from the perspective of duality and polarity, and that's okay. And it's not about banishing the dark. It's not about fighting it with our swords, so to speak, and like completely annihilating it. It's coming into balance between the two, the yin and yang. That's exactly what this whole process of ascension is for us. It's not overcoming our darkness or overcoming the darkness that's in the world. It's finding balance between the two, so we can be in equilibrium, so we can find true equilibrium, true balance between ourselves and how we interact with others. And this process will take us further to unity consciousness. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave comments below, and I love you. See you. I was gonna say see you later and next time mixed into one. So I'm gonna say see you next time.